Hey everybody, I'm Jason Butt with the Telegraph.
I'm Jordan Hill with the Ledger-Enquirer.
And it's time for us to discuss who we think will place in both the East and West divisions in the SEC this season. Let's start with the West. To me, that seems to be a division where you can kind of get a good gauge, at least based on now, how the teams did last season, where we can project. I think there's a better gauge there than the East, so let's start there. We'll go position by position. At the top spot, shocker, I got Alabama.
Yeah, I got Alabama. I mean, I feel like at this point, if you're doubting Nick Saban, you must know something that nobody else does.
Right.
I mean, they don't ever have to rebuild; they just rebuild.
That's absolutely accurate. Number two, got the Auburn Tigers. I think that the addition of Jarrett Stidham does wonders for them. Love their run game.
I had a chance to watch Jarrett at the A-Day scrimmage, and I mean, he was just wherever they needed the ball, he was there. And you can't take too much out of a scrimmage, but I was impressed, and I think you're right. That was my pick, Auburn, second in the list.
I'll tell you what though, my number 3 team, if one of those top 2 teams slips, look out for LSU. It's a sneaky sleeper dark horse. I'd say dark horse sleeper is probably not the right word for a team as dominant as LSU has been in previous years, but I love their defense with Arden Key leading it. The run game should be strong once again with Darius Geis. Got them at number 3. Obviously, they seem to have just enough holes to where they're in that second tier in the West this season, though.
Yeah, coming in with Ed Orgeron's first full year as a head coach, I think there's some questions, but they have so much talent. I don't see them, having any issues with him, leading that team and really keeping them in that fight. And what I really think is going to be a tight West.
Number 4, I think this is our last spot where we are the same in the West. I got Arkansas. I think that Brett Bielema, he gets that running game to continue to produce like it has. Love Devwah Whaley. I think he has a season where kind of like his coming out party. I think that Raleigh Williams, his loss really does hurt them, but Devwah Whaley, a great back that Georgia's old coaching staff wanted until the coaching change occurred, and then he ended up with the Razorbacks.
And a guy that I really want to watch is Austin Allen. We had a chance to kind of talk about him earlier in the week. Really stood tall for Arkansas last year, and I don't see him having any issues coming back and being just as strong this time.
Okay, here's where it appears that we differ a little bit.
You want to
you got to make it interesting. Yeah. Number 5, I got Mississippi State. Reason, Nick Fitzgerald wins them 2 games based on his ability as a passer and as a runner. Really, as a passer, that's where he's got to improve. He was a sub 60% passer last season. He gets that completion percentage up a good bit this season, and I think his running ability in this day and age of college football is way too important for the Bulldogs, and I think that Mississippi State's able to, and that's the thing, 5th in the West is actually pretty good, really good in most other divisions or conferences in the country.
You look at these last few teams, I really struggled trying to figure out who goes where, and I stayed in Mississippi, but didn't go with Miss State. Ole Miss, we know that they're not going to be going to a bowl game. I feel like they had a lot of talent last year and just had so many guys get hurt. And I think Shea Patterson coming in at quarterback, he got to play a little bit last year with Chad Kelly getting hurt. I think that's going to benefit him. And, really they got nothing to lose. So, I mean, I expect them to make a little noise. I think a lot of people think that, they may just try to survive this season, but I think they'll put up some fight and get a few kind of upset wins.
Number 6 in the West, I got Texas A&M. Christian Kirk, he's a dynamic playmaker for them. They lose Myles Garrett. That's going to be really tough. They got some guys by committee. Kevin Sumlin talked about that at Media Days, that they got to get to replace this kind of production. But let's face it, with Myles Garrett, this team faltered down the stretch last season, and they just aren't as talented as they were a year ago, and that's why I have Texas A&M all the way down at 6.
And that's where I had them as well. And they've been perennially about 8-5 these last few years. Even with the amount of talent they've had, it's just been frustrating really to watch this talent not be able to get these wins. And they lose 3 of their receivers. They do have Christian Kirk coming back, but I just see it being kind of a long season there in College Station.
Right. Actually, it seems like we were right on number 6.
Yeah.
Not completely different in the final 3. I got Ole Miss at number 7. It's so tough. When you're on probation and you can't play for a bowl game, your head's not totally there. I do think Shea Patterson's a great quarterback, will be a great quarterback, but I just don't see this team, the makeup with what they lost, the mindset of this team, all the distractions. I just don't see them being much of a factor in the SEC this year, especially with how they finished, kind of went off the rails as last season went along.
So I flipped, obviously, the two Mississippi teams and had Mississippi State last, and it was basically a product of just somebody's going to finish last. And but you know, it always seems like that the media overall will doubt Dan Mullen, and then he turns around and hey, maybe he'll prove me wrong. I wouldn't doubt it.
All right, let's get to the East. Let's go reverse. Okay. How about that? Let's go reverse. Okay, so number 7. I think we're in agreement on this one. Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that they've got pieces there that can get them, you know, competitive. But you know, they really struggled through Barry Odom's first year. They've got the pieces, like we said, Drew Lock and some of the other guys around him, but it's just so tough, you know, for them to kind of get back to where they were, where all of a sudden, you know, they had won the division twice, and no one really was giving them a chance. So, you know, I mean, there's pieces there. I just don't see it happen.
Number 6. If this makes it to Fall Country, I will probably have a hit on them. I got Tennessee finishing 6th in the East this year. Now, I did a post early in the summer ranking Georgia's opponents, and I put Tennessee in the top 5. And the more and more I look at this team, the more and more I don't like this team going into the season. Perhaps they prove me wrong. Perhaps Butch Jones rights the ship. But with all the talent they had a year ago, could not get it done. Talk about the distraction, everything that surrounded the Jalen Hurd situation. And then you take all that into account and the fact that they only return 11 starters, lose Joshua Dobbs, lose Alvin Kamara, lose Derek Barnett, and then you don't really have the confidence in the guys that necessarily are returning. The guys that are returning that you know about aren't the caliber that those guys that they lost were. The more and more you look at this Tennessee team, the more it sure seems like this could be a down year. I will be surprised if this team wins more than 7 games in 2017.
And I'll kind of hit on them in a second, but really, I mean, I shared a lot of the thoughts that you had. And for me at 6, I actually put Vanderbilt, which is a team that, you know, I still think really highly of. Derek Mason, I think, has got something going there, but, you know, the offense just, it never seems to get there. You know, we keep hearing that these guys are ready. They've got experience there, but, you know, I feel like it'll be another year where you can count on the defense to maybe give up 14 points, and then you just pretty much pray that your offense can put up 15, which, you know, coming in a conference like that, it's just really hard to try to win games.
Now at number 5, I have Vanderbilt, and I wanted to, and part of it maybe be that the fact that I really like Derek Mason as a coach, and then you hear him talk and you want to buy into what he's selling. Yeah, and he's got the rah-rah thing going, and you want to jump on that bandwagon. The fact is they lost Zach Cunningham, who I don't know if Vanderbilt, when they look back at what Zach Cunningham was to that program, they may not ever have a defensive player of his caliber ever come through, or he might. I'm not a Vanderbilt historian, but he might be one of the top 2, top 3 best players ever come through that program. That's a lot to overcome, but I think their defense will keep them in most of their games. I don't think they'll keep them in that Alabama game early on this year, but in their Eastern games, I think the defense will do enough. Kyle Shermer has to take that next step. They did close strong last year offensively, but it's one of those I'll believe it till I see it kind of things when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. I do like Ralph Webb at running back, though.
I will just throw in, I'm telling you, that Middle Tennessee game to start the year, I would not sleep on the Blue Raiders in it.
No, definitely can't.
I'll go.
You got
Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So Tennessee. You know, I feel like that there's a lot of questions there with so many guys like Josh Dobbs leaving. You know, it's just hard to really be able to buy in to what's kind of going on there. Butch Jones, you know, there's a lot of questions around him. You know, I feel like that they're going to have to do a lot to replace that production that's going in guys like Derek Barnett. And I just think they probably don't have enough to get back to where they really want to be.
Right. Number 4, I have South Carolina. I think their defense returns a great number of guys, but the biggest returner they have on that side of the ball is Sky Moore at linebacker. Went through offseason neck surgery a year ago. I think he comes back in a major way. Really helps Will Muschamp and at and that defensive side of the ball help get them going in the right direction. A 6-6 overachieving season last season, in the regular season at least. You know, a lot of people pegged them as a 3-win team a year ago. I like to see South Carolina make a bigger jump in year 2 of Will Muschamp's tenure there.
And looking at my spot there, I have South Carolina tied, but they'll win the tiebreaker between this team, Kentucky. You know, I mean, I'll be honest and say that I didn't know what to expect last season with Mark Stoops. You just didn't know if they would turn the corner, and they made real progress. And I think that's going to continue this year. They've got plenty of talent coming back. I think the defense is going to be stacked with some of those guys like Courtney Love. And I think this is potentially an 8-win team. I mean, you think about, you know, you sort of, when you go down the East Division, you don't know how many wins some of these lower teams can get, but I think this will be a really good Kentucky team.
And that's who I have at number 3, actually, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is with me and Kentucky. I'll go ahead and throw this out there. I think every year, for whatever reason, I think Kentucky's going to be that team, and then they start out slow, or they don't have the right mindset early on in games. I really do think this is the Kentucky team. They got to get better in the defensive front. Matt Elam has to come around and be the guy that a lot of people thought he could be. Courtney Love at linebacker, I think he's somebody who can produce. Jordan Jones, I think he's one of the most underrated players in this conference. I was kind of surprised that he didn't come to media days, but then Mike Edwards at safety. They return, I believe it's 8 or 9 starters on the defensive side of the ball.
Guys really
and then on the offensive side of the ball, they return just as many. Steven Johnson at quarterback, he's got to become a better passer. That's another I'll believe until I see it moment. But Benny Snell, watching Kentucky play Georgia last year, that was one of the few teams where Kentucky would line up, Georgia knew what was coming, and they couldn't stop it. Very few times did the Kirby Smart defense and the Mel Tucker defense let that happen. Kentucky was one of the only teams that was able to kind of line up, play that old school smash mouth football, and get the job done in the running game. I really think Kentucky makes a leap into that top 3 in the East this year.
So looking at my 3rd team, I actually have South Carolina. You know, a team last year that, you know, I kind of think everybody sort of left for dead. I mean, with Will Muschamp coming in his first year, really impressed, got him to a bowl game, and I think, you know, they take that next step. You mentioned Sky Moore earlier. I think he'll come back and, you know, really help that defense, and I think that, you know, they might actually be able to get something rolling. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the East for these teams that nobody's really expecting that can move up, get some wins, and really turn some heads.
All right, down to number 1 and number 2. We'll save the suspense. Who do you got number 1? Who do you got number 2?
Number 1, I got Florida, and number 2, I got Georgia. Just for Florida, I mean, I think that they've just got it kind of figured out, and you know, quarterback sort of a question right now, and they add in a guy, Malik Zaire from Notre Dame. You know, he's going to be in contention for that job. I just think Jim McElwain's kind of got the rest of the division's number right now. You know, they got some really tough games. They open with Michigan, which obviously won't count in the race. But you know, I think this is a team that could potentially be a college football playoff contender. And you know, I think that, you know, I think Georgia at 2 is going to give them a well of a fight. But you know, Georgia returns a lot of talent, but you know, we just keep seeing that. You know, it's the same story over and over when these 2 teams meet in Jacksonville. Plenty of talent. Can Georgia get it done? And I'm just not convinced they can.
No matter what in the SEC, defense wins championships. Georgia's got 10 returning starters on the defensive side of the ball. No other team in the conference has that many. The defense was a strong part last season. I'm going with Georgia 1, Florida 2. Now, Florida, to me, the most underrated coach in the SEC at the moment is Jim McElwain. And it really befuddles me, and as I just said, befuddled.
Yeah, that's nice, very nice.
Very nice. And it befuddles me that Florida fans have been quick in 2 years to jump down Jim McElwain's throat. He hasn't had a quarterback to really work with. He finally has one in either Malik Zaire or Felipe Franks, if Franks is able to develop like they hope he can after a redshirt season. But Zaire is a perfect fit for what they would want to do on offense in terms of running the ball. And one thing that I think we've seen out of Jim McElwain in Florida is that they're able to stay the course. Last year, given the fact that they had the LSU situation with the hurricane, they've had injuries. They've overcome a lot of stuff in the first 2 years under McElwain to win 2 SEC East titles. So you can't sleep on them even when they don't have, when they lose 8 starters from last year's defense. But Georgia, the fact that they bring back 10, the fact they bring back their starting quarterback, they bring back the best backfield in the nation, the fact that they have an emerging tight end star in Isaac Nauta, perhaps another in Charlie Warner. They got to get better play out of their receivers. The offensive line has to improve. I just really like what I see out of this Georgia team. And whether the coach was Mark Richt or Kirby Smart, the stars really seem to align for that 2017 season about 3 or 4 years ago. So I got Georgia winning the East. He's got Florida winning the East. And both have Alabama winning the West.
Yeah.
So who do we have winning the SEC this year?
It's just like a broken record. But I just think Alabama, it just makes too much sense. They got so much talent. It's just, rinse and repeat with Alabama Crimson Tide. I think that they'll take care of Florida in the conference championship game. I'll say, 31-21.
Oh, we're putting scores on it before a game's played.
Yeah,
all right,
let's go.
I also have Alabama. It's until these teams can prove that they can chase Bama, and obviously in a given season or two, Alabama will lose a conference game, usually to a West opponent, until they absolutely prove that they can be beat by an Eastern team in that conference championship. You got to go Alabama. There's no reason not to. I don't know, Alabama by 6. Sure.
and I just want to throw out there, to me the biggest thing, I think, like you said, you made a lot of great points about Georgia having that chance in the East. Offensive line, to me, that is where it, will begin and end, because had so much talent coming back with the run game last year, and it just can never get that consistent mark because of the offensive line. You look at Florida, I think they've got enough pieces on the offensive line where you really don't even have to question it. So I say if Georgia figures that out, then by all means, I think they have a really good shot at winning the division.
And for me, you can make the argument it's a coin flip in the East. You can't really make that argument in the West. But we'll see how it all shakes out. We very well could be wrong about almost everything. Because
definitely would not be a first.
Because this is SEC Media Days, and it is still July, and the first game doesn't kick off until September. So, thanks for watching, everybody, and we hope to see you soon. I'm Jason Butt with the Telegraph. He's Jordan Hill with the Ledger-Enquirer. Y'all take care.